Hey everyone, it's Leandra. Nope. Hey everyone, welcome back to Leandra the TBR Zero. I have another Busted or Dusted video for you today. However, it's a little bit different. Rather than giving you 5 titles and letting you know it's a bust, meaning, hey, keep it on your shelves for a little bit longer, or it's a dust, meaning dust it off, it's been on there too long, what are you waiting for? I've decided to actually discuss a bit of a theme in characters. This is because I've selected a few series in which there's a main protagonist, and I'll let you know if I ended up adoring them or if I'm still on the fence. And the theme today is actually elderly / senior / pensioner detectives. I had a lot of fun perusing my shelves because I realized I had quite a few, and while I haven't read all of them, I will go over the ones that I have read first, and then just for fun, I thought I would mention those that are on my TBR so that maybe you all can let me know, hey, is this a dust or bust situation? So without further ado, let's get into the video. This is your reminder to like the video, consider subscribing, and ring that bell that's in the corner, because then you'll be notified every time I have another video like this on my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and yeah, have a wonderful day. Aw, look at Leandra. First up, I thought I'd go with a classic and discuss Miss Jane Marple. I have a complicated relationship with her because when it comes to Agatha Christie's series featuring Miss Marple, I am privy to her earlier works. I adore the very first novel she's featured in, which is The Murder at the Vicarage. This is one of my copies. I have another one that's like a Bantam classic that I absolutely adore. I absolutely adore Miss Marple in the earlier books. She's a quiet detective. She's quite unique. Usually the detectives are thrown into the mysteries. They are being followed by their sidekick, who is documenting their every move, attempting to decipher what they're doing. But with Miss Marple, I've noticed in quite a few books, she isn't always even in the scene. A lot of times we're switching point of view, observing some of the suspects doing something that maybe they shouldn't be, and Miss Marple isn't even there. With The Murder at the Vicarage, for example, we actually are following the vicar, and he is conducting his own mystery, and once in a while he'll do a little check-in with Miss Marple. They'll discuss the case, and then they'll both go their separate ways. So this is a really unique detective in itself. She is this spinster woman. She is able to kind of listen in and observe people without them taking her seriously. And in this book, it seems as if we don't really take her seriously since she's really on the page for half the time. If you want an elderly detective who kind of gets in on the gossip and can weed out the truth, then I highly recommend Miss Jane Marple. However, disclaimer, I wouldn't recommend the later works. I haven't read them all, but the few that I have read tend to shine on Agatha Christie's questionable morals and political beliefs. So just be warned, I would stick to when Agatha Christie was younger. All right, detective number 2, I suppose, is another Agatha Christie favorite, and that is Hercule Poirot. Now, he is a lot more active in his cases. We really see him almost on every single page, and he actually loves the attention. It's very interesting to compare him with Miss Marple because Agatha Christie has created 2 very different personalities. With Hercule Poirot, he is very determined to find the truth. He has proclaimed himself that he is the best detective that there ever was, and so he proves that by often playing with the sidekick that is with him. More often than not, it's Colonel Hastings. It's quite funny because with him and Colonel Hastings is known as the sentimentalist, whereas Poirot is often like removing emotion from the equation. And so you can 100% tell that Poirot likes to play with Hastings a bit, plan his emotions, and of course that ends up making it even harder for us to decipher. But I love Hercule Poirot so much, and I thought I'd give a somewhat obscure title that isn't as talked about as, say, Murder on the Orient Express or Death on the Nile, etc. So I'm showing you the ABC murders. I decided to choose this one specifically for the theme of elderly retired detectives because this one is later in their career, and it's quite funny because Hastings has returned from Argentina for a little bit where he ended up retiring himself with his wife, but he returns to England, meets up with Poirot, and of course this is when all hell breaks loose and there is a serial killer running around various parts of England. So what I think is funny though is that both of them are older, and Poirot and Hastings often reflect on how old they're getting, how gray their hair is getting, their hair is thinning. It's just quite funny. And I think that it matches this theme perfectly. So yeah, if you're looking for an especially old feeling Poirot, then the ABC Murders will be great, especially since even though he's old, this is one of the high tension, high adrenaline books that we'll find him in. The next detective that I'll be including isn't really a detective at all. It's hard to explain, but I will do my best. So this isn't actually a series. I have broken my own rule in this video in which these are meant to be detectives who are in series, but whatever. I'm allowed to break my own rules, I guess. So I'm talking about Liane Moriarty's 9 Perfect Strangers. This is a standalone novel, and it does lean onto the cusp of like thriller because you can see these characters getting into trouble, whether they're seeing it or not, and it just adds to the tension. So I would call this a mystery thriller hybrid. The reason why I'm adding this to the list is because one of my favorite characters is Frances Welty, and she's just so funny as she's trying to figure things out, try to understand how unsafe she is in this situation with these, again, 8 other strangers at this retreat. Of course, the stakes are high because, if I remember correctly, they can't interact with technology. They have to follow every single strict rule of this retreat, which is quite questionable in its ethics. So Frances Welty, though, she is a formerly best-selling romantic novelist, and I just remember she did give off kind of elderly, maybe great aunt or grandma vibes. I think she probably was actually like in her 50s, but she was one of the older people within this character group, and I just really loved her. So I highly recommend this if you're looking for a bit more thriller vibes, and that goes for the ABC Murders as well. The next 2 series that I'm going to mention are actually both super brand new, one of them more than the other, but they both feature a club in a sense of detectives. And the first one that I'm going to mention, I believe the first book came out in 2020, and that is The Thursday Murder Club. It's by Richard Osman, who is a comedian in his own right, as well as just an intelligent person. So there are 2 books in this series right now. A third one is on the way. I have pre-ordered it. And this follows 4 brilliant, yet quirky and odd and cunning characters, and they're all pensioners. So this happens in a retirement home, at least in this book. The characters that I'm going to mention are Elizabeth, Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron, and all 4 of them are great complements of each other. They all bring a very different background from their obviously very full lives, and now they are at this retirement home and someone is murdered. And so of course, because their club was already created prior to this murder, and what they did at the Thursday Murder Club was simply look at cold cases and try to make their own theories. So now they can officially apply those theories and the skills they've learned to a real life murder, which is just so fun. And they get into so many antics. They do push back against the police at times. like, it's a nice relationship where they do begin to befriend the two police officers that they collide with. I personally feel like there is some obstruction of justice at times, and these elderly detectives don't really understand the seriousness of what they're doing. So I did get frustrated at times, but I'm sure that if you are a big fan of modern mysteries or cozies, you know about this book. You've probably read it, but I just wanted to warn you that that was one small thing that I didn't appreciate. I just wish that they had acknowledged, you know, they kind of were like a bit smart alecky, being like, ha ha ha, there's nothing you could do. We're obstructing justice while we're conducting our own mystery investigation. So either way, I had a lot of fun. I have book 2 on my shelf. I haven't read it yet. I've heard it's a bit more espionage-esque. And like I said, book 3 is on the way. I believe it's in September. So I fully intend to return to these characters very soon. And yeah, they're just really sweet and very fun. The final series that I'll be mentioning, I have to give a disclaimer. I don't actually know if it's a series. I'm hoping it is. It gives off the vibes that it is, especially with the title name. But I just read it, I want to say a month ago, and I fell in love with the characters. I have to let you know, I ended up liking it better than the Thursday Murder Club, even though they both parallel each other so well. And I have met other readers who preferred the Thursday Murder Club to this. So, you know, it's a toss-up. But the book I'm talking about is The Marlowe Murder Club by Robert Thorogood. If you know anything about Robert Thorogood, he is the creator of Death in Paradise, which is one of my favorite TV shows. I absolutely adore those episodes and those characters. So of course, it was not surprising that I ended up adoring this book. I actually have some of the books from that TV show on my shelves as well, but I haven't actually read them yet. So the reason why I loved the Marlowe Murder Club so much is because the main character, there's 3 detectives, but the really the heart of the organization, I guess you'll call it, is a crossword setter, and her name's Judith Potts. She is 72 years old. No, she's 77 years old, and she is just doing her thing, you know, basically being a genius, creating crosswords for the general public. Then suddenly there is a string of murders, and one of those murders happens right next door to her neighbor. And so she is, of course, forced in a sense to participate, since she did hear his final cry for help as well. So it adds a lot of tension. She's very close to the crime, and she ends up picking up 2 other women who are part of the community to really come together and make some progress on this case. And to give an example of some of the parallels, they do interact with the police as well, just as the 4 investigators in the Thursday Murder Club do, but they are signed on as like community help or something, or community consultants, whatever the actual term is. So they work very closely with the police to help push the case forward. And I don't know, I just like that better. I preferred this to the design of the Thursday Murder Club, but to be honest, they come to the same result, and both groups end up leaving being like friendly. So it's not a huge deal, but I adored this. I loved the humor. I really liked the tight-knit community because yeah, you are in a neighborhood, in a very small community where you are getting to know people, you're hearing gossip, hearing rumors, and digging into the history of this community. So I really loved it. I'm hoping that this is a series, and I just read the debut. So if we can just pass the message on to Robert Thorogood to tell him to keep publishing, that would be great. So yeah, I highly, highly recommend The Marlowe Murder Club. Well, surprise, surprise, I recommended all of these books. I think going into this, I knew that I wasn't really going to call any of them a bust. And that's because, to be honest, this is my bread and butter. I really love when we have elderly detectives. I just think that it adds a lot of, I guess, interesting details to the mysteries. Oftentimes, these detectives are bringing back memories from their past, which helps enrich the narrative and honestly helps them find the murderer, which I think is just really fun and interesting. Because they have a bit more wisdom, I usually end up leaning towards liking the dialogue more. That's kind of the problem I usually have with cozy mysteries that are modern, especially when they're first person. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, all of these books are predominantly written in the third person, which again that's my jam. And if they aren't, they are written from the perspective of some sidekick character, not from the detective themselves. So I just think I lean towards a lot of these details more than I do the first person quirky young amateur detective that you often find in modern cozies. So yeah, of course I'm going to recommend them. So I did say that I was going to showcase a few books on my TBR shelves that do feature senior pensioner detectives, and I want to ask anyone, if I show a book that you have read, please let me know what you thought about it. I want to go in with the proper mindset. Is it too overhyped, or is it a book that was surprisingly really clever and amazing? That goes with the 5 books that I mentioned, especially if you want to discuss other titles that feature those detectives. I am game. But let me start with the first book, and it is Auntie Poldy and the Sicilian Lions. I know that this has quite a few books in the series by now, but gosh, I don't know why I've taken so long to finally read it. First of all, the cover's gorgeous, and for some reason I actually don't mind the sticker lemon on the cover. It's a real sticker, and I think I don't mind that. I'd rather have it be a real sticker than a fake sticker. Those actually just annoy me. They're imposters. That's what they are. Stickers that aren't stickers are imposters, and those frustrate me above all else. To give a little bit of information, our detective is a 60-year-old Auntie Poldy, and she retires to Sicily, and she's intending to while away the rest of her days with good wine, a view of the sea, and few visitors. But Sicily isn't quite the tranquil island she thought it would be, and something always seems to get in the way of her relaxation. When her handsome young handyman goes missing and is discovered murdered, she can't help but ask questions. So of course she ends up getting involved in police activity. Apparently there's a smoldering police inspector, a romantic entanglement, and so much more. Oh my gosh. Maybe I should prioritize this. I am really excited. I have been itching for a read that takes me somewhere warm and tropical in a sense. And I love that this is set on Sicily because I personally haven't been there. I have visited Italy twice, and I have visited one of its islands, which was Ischia, but I haven't actually been to Sicily. I think that's really fun that this is where I'm assuming the entire series is set. Very, very excited, and please let me know what you think about it. Another book that's on my shelf that's a bit more obscure, I think it bends multiple genres together for this to actually work, and again, I'm dying to read it. I'm actually really, really angry with myself. I'm disappointed about myself for Auntie Poldy, but I'm angry that I haven't read this yet because it just looks awesome, and it's called High Fire. I'm assuming the author's name is Ewan Colfer. It is an Irish author, I believe, and yeah, it's spelled E-O-I-N. I'm thinking it's Ewan. I may be very wrong, and I apologize to anyone who knows the proper pronunciation, because you're probably gritting your teeth right now. But this is like a fantasy mystery that includes old age folklore. In the days of yore, he flew the skies and scorched angry mobs. Now he hides from swamp tour boats and rises only with the greatest reluctance from his lazy boy recliner. Wyvern, I wonder if it's wyvern. You know, this is one of those things where it's an ancient creature, and because I don't read fantasy very often, I don't know how to pronounce it. He is the last of his kind, the last dragon, yet no amount of vodka can drown the loneliness in his molten core. Oh, so he's like a dragon, and oh god. But it shows that there's like some shady smugglers going on. His boss is murdered and he witnesses it. So, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the reason why I'm including this in the list is just because it says, you know, the days of yore, like he used to be this young gun dragon doing all of this mayhem, and now he's honestly kind of retired and relaxing in what I can only imagine is like the swampy South United States. The only reason why I'm saying that is because it's like Cajun swamp rat. You know, it sounds like that, but of course this is an Irish author, so I'm a little confused. Either way, I just, you know when it's going to be a crazy ride and you really want to get on that ride as soon as possible. That's how I feel about High Fire. So hopefully this video ends up pushing me to read it. And that is my list of have read and to be read mysteries that feature a senior / elderly / pensioner detective. I really hope you enjoyed the video and that's why you made it to the end. And if you did and you haven't liked the video thus far, please give it a like right now. And consider subscribing and ringing the little bell, so then when I feature other videos on my page, you are one of the first people to be notified. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Please feel free to engage with me in the comments. And yeah, I hope you have a great day. Bye, everybody.